Today's guests walked away from six-figure engineering gigs. We're talking mega projects, northern mines, negative 50-degree conditions to renovate houses in Hamilton, Ontario. He bought his first property in 2016. Today, those same houses have doubled or even tripled in value, and he has partnered with Home Depot across 30 stores, shot a pilot for HGTV, and is about to break ground on a 22-unit development. His name is Seif. He runs New4, and he's going to break down exactly how he built one of the most highly rated contracting businesses in his market, including why he thinks technical skill is the last thing he looks for when hiring. I'm Ryan Atkinson, and you're listening to Help Flip Podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs to hear their advice on how you can start a business like this. I'm so excited to welcome Seif to the podcast. So Seif, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Ryan. What an introduction.
Yeah, I want to bring the energy. You're drinking an espresso shot, so I figured I had to bring some sort of energy there. But let's talk about you. Give us a high level real quick for the audience, 15 seconds. What exactly do you do?
Well, I'm an engineer, and I built a construction business, and I mostly focus on residential and commercial projects here in Hamilton, Ontario, which wherever the viewers are, this is all in Canada.
I love the construction business. Before we move forward and talking more about your background, what do you guys do in revenue? Can you give us a North Star to talk about how big scale of an operation this is?
We do a few million a year, so it's multiple seven figures.
Well, we're going to talk about how someone else can grow there. But before we do that, let's talk about your engineering background, because you went from engineering to doing residential renovations in Hamilton. Talk to us about the path that got you there to that moment to decide, hey, I'm going to leave this engineering job for residential.
Yeah, I studied engineering at a university, and then I got a job out of school. It was a pretty good job, actually, and I learned a lot. The one thing that is, I would say, the downside of engineering is every problem is very defined. So you typically have a box. So all your unknowns are what we call now that I'm in business, they're called known unknowns, right? So it's that you don't know this. And what I find out in the real world is the highest paid problems and the highest paid problem solvers are people that are solving unknown unknowns. So you're getting into something that you don't quite know, yet you still somehow make it on top. So I'd say that was the one downfall on the engineering side, is that all the problems were known unknowns.
So does it excite you to not know the unknowns there then? Or was that the entrepreneurial itch for you? I'm curious about that.
At the start, it's always uncomfortable, right? Because money's always on the line, whether you're taking up your time, your energy, your effort, the quality of your product, service, whatever it is, there's always money on the line, and no one likes to lose money. So when you're first starting off, you never quite understand what it feels like to lose money, because when you grow up and you go to school, right, for the first 20-ish years of your life, you're always taught the A+ student's better than the A is better than the A-, so on and so forth. And what's the difference between each one? Each one makes less and less mistakes. But that's not true in the real world. In the real world, the ones that do very well are the ones that fail, but they fail fast, right? And you learn from it quickly, and then you don't repeat that same mistake again.
I like it. That is a really good fail fast. That's a good takeaway for the audience there. All right, let's talk about failing, because it is part of every entrepreneurial story. And I want to talk about the really early root of yours. You bought your first property in 2016. What did you see what others didn't see, and how did this light bulb come up for you to be hey, let me try my hand at this?
I had a friend at the time that was involved a little bit in real estate, and your first deal is never your craziest deal. Believe me, if everybody is looking at any one deal or a new venture, the one common downfall that I see everybody make is analysis paralysis on day one. You sit and you analyze everything. How do I know this window isn't leaking? How do I know this pipe isn't going to burst? So on and so forth. Take the top three things that you're looking for in a property, and that is it. There is such a thing in business as too much information. And the problem when you have too much information, especially I can't even imagine in a world like 2026 with AI, is you're bombarded with way too much detail, right? Sort of like you're driving a car and you have a million different lights going on, like the tire pressure and what percentage of your brakes are left. You don't necessarily need all that stuff screaming at you, because what's going to happen is you're just going to get distracted. All you need is a clear windshield, gas in the tank, maybe a speedometer, depending how good of a driver you are. So pick a couple of things that are absolutely crucial and make the first decision, because the indecision is much more painful than making the wrong decision. My first investment wasn't the best. Honestly, it wasn't that special. I saved up a bit of money and it could buy me a certain house. I just got the house. I ended up getting it for a half decent deal. The rent covered the mortgage, and I was okay. I self-managed. And then over time, as you start to accumulate a bit more money, you can start to be more specific for what you're looking for. And then you can demand to make much more money.
That's good. The first three things of like what you know now, what should someone that's getting into this business like know or like look for if like you had to categorize the best three things to look for?
So I'll say, okay, so the one thing that I think is it's a little cliche and I never really understood it, but now I do, right, is location. So when they say location, because when you first start, like the location is so important because once you buy in a terrible area, you simply can't do anything about it. The house price is not going to go up. But the problem with location is it's not that measurable. So when I first started, I would go look at the median house income. I would go look up all these things that are data. I had these crazy Excel sheets and I would measure everything up. You cannot measure that. I'm telling you, you can't measure that. So then what I started doing is I just started walking the area. I'd walk up and down the streets of the neighborhood. And then, you know what, when you go on a nice sunny summer day and you see a neighbor hosing down their porch, you just say hi and you talk to them. It is a feeling. The question is, would you mind living in this area? And if you don't mind living in this area, you can give it a big check for the location. But you see, that almost sounds too simple. Most people are going to say, well, no, let me run it through this AI model. I need this calculations. No, if the location's not good, don't buy it. So I would say that's number one. Two is that the house has good bones. And what that means is it's not too chopped up. When you walk in, you don't see like different sections, done renovations in different times. And there's like, you know, you could just tell that layers are slapped on top of each other. And number three, that it'll attract quality tenants. So when you walk into the place, does it feel like it's got potential to be a half decent place to live for a tenant to want to live long term? If you nail those three fundamentals, after that, everything you can get into the analytics, right? How much profit are you making? How much income? How much rent is it bringing in minus your expenses? So I would only get into that after those top three are met.
Yeah, those are great three. I feel like the location ones, that's phenomenal advice because like one time when I was touring apartments, I got advice from someone. It's like, just go there and like look at the people that are like living there and hate to like stereotype like that. But it's truly like, do you like the vibe of this place? Can you imagine yourself living there? Something that I'm reading between the lines before you answer that question is like, you take action. That I think is very true. You're someone that like takes action. You don't wait for the opportunity. You just like go for it. Tell us like the importance of that as an entrepreneur before we continue the conversation.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty lucky because when I say I have it in me, if I don't take action, it's sort of like an itch. I'll think about it, I'll obsess over it, I'll think about it 5, 10 times a day. And the what if it would have worked out absolutely kills me. I would much rather try, fail, lose a little bit of money, lose a little bit of time, but then I knew I gave it my all. Because it's impossible. If you got a good head on your shoulders, right? If you are constantly reading, constantly surrounding yourself with good people, it's a numbers game. Just go make 1,000 decisions. You're going to hit home runs. You know what I mean? Just make those decisions. And that's the only way I would say to do those is just to make sure that you're actually getting something done and you're not just thinking about it and waiting to make that perfect decision.
I talk about it all the time on the podcast. Like the biggest difference between like an entrepreneur and like a wannabe-preneur is like the entrepreneur like took action on their goals, on their dreams, what they wanted to accomplish. That like to me is like the biggest thing that it typically comes down to is like they took that first step, which can be a scary step, but the entrepreneur like took that step similar to like the path that you've taken, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be the smartest in order to do the best.
All right. So 2016, you buy your first property. How did you like scale up from there? Tell us about that time frame in your life.
There was a bit of patience. And I think that's also one thing that a lot of people today are also missing. You have to know when to be impatient and when to immediately react to something and not leave any money on the table. And you have to know when to pull back, right? You need to be very aggressive and very impatient when something is in your control. So if it's a matter of getting a deal, calling a person, making 10 phone calls, driving up to the property, making multiple offers, you got to be impatient. But once you got it, sometimes you just got to sit back and let the asset do the work. So I did that in 2016. I bought a couple houses. I waited. The housing market shot up. I did a little bit of work to it, right? I didn't go too crazy. I just did a bit to improve it so that the quality of the tenant improved, the rent improved, and that slowly compounded over time. You don't realize, just put it in an Excel sheet, right? Put a 25-year or a 30-year amortization schedule, put your rent in the next column, increase the rent by 2%, right? And every year it's 2% from the year before, which includes 2% on the 2%, right? It's called compounding. And then subtract one from the other. And you'll start to see it's like a hockey stick. And just be patient at the beginning. People sometimes don't see the results at the beginning. They're like, oh, it's not worth it. If you would have waited for just that same amount of time, you would have made 10x more.
Are you working a 9-to-5 but dream of entrepreneurial freedom? Look no further than the Upflip Academy, the #1 entrepreneurial platform with 20 plus step-by-step courses taught by active business owners, live workshops, hands-on skill training, a business idea database, and a thriving entrepreneur community to keep you accountable. Click the link in the description below to join the Upflip Academy today and make this the year you stopped dreaming and started building your business without guesswork.
There's a really famous quote out there by Naval where it's like impatient with action, but like patient with results. It's one of like my favorite quotes out there. So how long did it take you, and I want to paint the picture for the audience, like how long did it take you to see that compounding growth? If you're doing 2%, I mean, this was 2016, we're 10 years later. Was there a moment where it's like, oh, like this was like the right call, it's now compounded? Or like, when should people like be able to see those compound results?
Okay, so it's really slow. If you're going specifically after long-term rentals, okay, you better have another active source of income because it is not going to pay the bills at the beginning, not even close, okay? So I'm assuming that you're able to have your day-to-day expenses covered by another active source of income. You will start to feel much more free in like 7 to 8 years. For me, that was only about 3 years ago.
Wow. So what does free like mean? Just like help paint that for the audience. What does free mean to you?
When you take your rent and you deduct your expenses, sometimes you are one tenant moving out away from putting money out of pocket into the property. You are one leak away, one maintenance call away from you putting money into the property. 7 or 8 years later, you're not really going to feel it. I have 1 or 2 tenants that don't pay or they pay late. It doesn't affect. You see what I mean? Because now the difference got a little bit bigger. So that is just, it's one less thing off the top of your mind. First of the month, I don't necessarily check the rent roll, who paid and who didn't pay, because the mortgage is coming out on the first and the rent's got to come in on the first. I don't really check. So if it's a couple weeks off, it's not the end of the world. Someone else can check that. So you just start to feel a little bit more hands off, and that gives you your life back and your relaxation back.
Yeah, I feel like that's the dream once you can get to that spot of like not having to worry about a tenant leaving, but like you can really live life more freely and having that peace of mind. I feel like a lot of it comes down to like peace of mind as well.
To be clear, I do not have peace of mind in my life. Right.
Okay.
But I'm just talking about just this one component from the rentals. That is something after like 8 years, it's 7, 8 years, it starts to get better, right? It's just, when you've been in the same business for now, the better part of a decade, you start to get a lot of different opportunities that come up and you start getting pulled up in every direction. So if you're an ambitious person, your appetite is bigger than your stomach. So start to eat a lot more, right? And you start to get spread thin.
That's good. All right, let's talk about garage to dwelling conversions. It looks like you specialize in that niche. Tell us more exactly what that niche is and why you decided to specialize in that.
When we first immigrated to Canada, it was in 2006. The standard home was 2,500 square feet, right? A couple of years later, it was 2,000. A couple of years after that, it was semis, and then townhouses, and then stack towns, and then condos absolutely boomed until they built way too many, and now things have collapsed. So you see the trend. Things are getting smaller and smaller. Affordability is getting tougher and tougher. And the garage conversions are a very easy add-on onto an existing home where it can accommodate multiple generations. Today, if you drive around in my neighborhood or any neighborhood close by, what I do is sometimes you got to go through the basics. I count the number of cars in each driveway. In 2006, 1 car, maximum 2 cars. Now the standard, 3-4 cars. Now, why are there 3-4 people driving, right? You have multiple incomes in the home. You have people that are in their 30s that are never going to become homeowners. So people are starting to live multiple people under one roof. The downside of that is you get people stepping on each other's toes because you're sharing bathrooms, you're sharing kitchens. So it just seemed like a very sensible fundamental shift is to start building these garage properties. And when the premier of Ontario in our province here, I think it was 2019 or 2020, he approved for these what are called ADUs, accessory dwelling units, to be built, which is these garage conversions or garage builds where you can start to live in another home in the backyard. It took a little bit of time for things to start moving up, and they're starting to become a lot more popular now.
So basically you guys are like making garage spaces much more livable and like actually like sexy, like people that can actually like live in them and like enjoy it.
Oh yeah, they look sick. I have a couple of my own, and I lived in one for about I don't remember 2 or 3 weeks. It was pretty nice. Like it's a one bedroom, it's open space. You got a lot of light. It's minimalist. I don't have to clean up all day. Like it's just nice.
Yeah. No, that is that's nice. I do like that. So it sounds like, the thinking was there of, affordability is going up, people are downsizing, like all living on top of each other. Talk to me about like the idea though, like when it did hit you, was it like a little crazy for you to do? Because it sounds like it wasn't like necessarily a trend, but it sounds like you were early on it.
I was definitely early. It's much easier to do now than it was back when I started in I think it was 2020 or 2021. It's funny actually how I did that. I was in Scottsdale, I was in Arizona. I was on a trip with my friends, my boys, and we rented this Airbnb. And the first thing when we got to the Airbnb, it's actually very popular in Arizona. So there was a pool house in the back. And then everyone went to the backyard. Arizona's got sick backyards, pools and everything, right? And then we went there, there's a pool house. And we go in, we're like, this place is sick, but it's a one bedroom. So everyone was fighting to stay in that one. Went for another trip, same thing happened again. And then I come back home when we fly back here, and I see this guy on Instagram, and he's posting talking about ADUs, garage conversions, and he's a realtor from my local market here. He's now my good friend, and he was the guy. That's what he was focusing on. So I went directly to him. I told him I want to buy these things. When can I buy it? Where can I buy it? What properties qualify? And I bought a couple from him.
Talk to me about like your mix then. So are you guys now like renting these out? I want to help the listener understand like what's the value of this? Are you guys like putting these onto homes? Like where's like does the value come in and like what are you charging for that?
So I like to buy from an investment standpoint. The market right now doesn't support new build yet, but there is a lot of markets in the US where it does support new builds. I know there's some big players in the Seattle area. That's just what I know of. I'm sure it works in many other markets as well. But in short, whether you're building it new or whether you're converting an existing garage, this ends up being a one bedroom or a two bedroom unit. And I'll give you an example of what the difference in rent is like, just so you really, really know how valuable this is. A one bedroom in this area, equivalent size, 550 square feet, would rent for, right now the market's down, call it 1650 to 700 a month. These garden suites, because they're independent, homes that are just on their own, you're not sharing any walls, you got your own backyard, they rent for 1950 to 2000. So you're talking $300 to $350 more per month for being an ADU. And guess what? Those are my least headache tenants because they're quality, they want to live there, versus who lives in a basement, someone that's in usually a transitionary period or just starting out or a couple that's moving out together. So you get those people move out all the time. But the tenant pool for ADUs is pure quality.
Oh, that's super interesting. I love the psychology behind all of that as well. So how many of these do you like have now then?
I have myself currently 11.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. It's something that like I see like a lot more, especially when I go to Airbnbs, and I know people that have actually like stayed in these types of things. They love it. Like they have like their own like private space. Like they're generally like pretty nice. So I definitely see like the value and like the easy ad right there as well, which is really sweet. All right, let's talk about HGTV because you shot a pilot for HGTV. It was like the notes here were 6 months of construction compressed into like 17 minutes. Tell us about like the process with HGTV. What were they filming? How was the process? Tell us that.
So I shot the pilot. So the way it works with HGTV is you pitch them an idea, and obviously at that point I was talking to someone in HGTV that was able to potentially get a show done, but the way it works with them is you have to shoot a pilot and you got to shoot it out of your own pocket. So I shot the pilot out of my own pocket, and I was so sold on this garage conversion idea that it's going to be the one, that it's going to be absolutely sick. I filmed it, I shot it. They liked me. They didn't like the idea. So they thought that the idea wasn't big enough for the HGTV audience because they're used to things that are much more grand, which really does put things into scale. Like, I mean, go into Netflix and look at these mansions in Beverly Hills and Miami. It's absolutely nuts. So unfortunately, the idea wasn't big enough for them. And that's why that we couldn't get a series out of it or anything.
But there had to be like some benefit of it. Like tell us about like, was there a benefit of like shooting with it? Because it is like a really cool initiative. I'm sure it was like a really interesting process to see the lease. So any sort of like benefit that came with HGTV partnership?
Number one is the contacts you make, right? Because once you have those, you have those. And I like those, right? You can always pick up a phone and call someone if the right opportunity does come up. And number two, I would say, is pretty indirect. With a lot of this public speaking stuff and having your face in front of a camera, you become a very good communicator. You can speak very well and you can carry yourself much better in person. And, it's a pretty underrated skill. You might not think that that's that important, but good communication is the number one skill to earning a lot more in life, right? And earning a lot more in your position. So I just felt like with becoming a lot better of a public speaker and being much more comfortable in front of the camera, that's been a huge plus as well.
Especially like nowadays in 2025, like being you're in front of a camera right now, you've been in front of a camera like a lot more. I feel like that's just a great way to come off as like a phenomenal leader. As you said, I feel like communication is like one of the biggest things you can acquire being in front of a camera for so long.
It's true. And also another big skill is being in front of the camera and not sounding like you're talking at the camera or at the viewer versus talking to them, right? Most people, once you start seeing a camera and you're in front of a camera, they freeze up and they sound scripted. Hey guys, we're here today. Like, no, talk to them like it's your buddy. You know what I mean? So becoming that comfortable in front of a camera, in front of a lens, it just resonates better with people. It doesn't necessarily help you get viral because you got to say crazy stuff to go viral. But at least when you talk, people are going to want to listen to you because now you're not talking at them, you're talking to them.
Few more questions here before we dive into our fan blitz. The 2026 market right now, what advice would you give to people that are evaluating like getting into something like this for the very first time?
Specifically long-term rentals or the ADUs?
The ADUs.
I would say underwrite your numbers properly. The market's taken a very big hit. There are amazing opportunities out there, right? But do not underestimate your costs. People always underestimate the costs that are associated with the build, right? Underwrite conservatively. But there are plenty of properties out there that have taken a big hit that you could buy for 20% under what the peak was.
Oh my gosh, no way. What are the common costs that like blow it up essentially?
I say the most common cost that blows up a project is your running cost. People underestimate that big time. They just think like, oh, this is $100,000 rental. The house is $500. If I finish this thing and it's worth $650, I made $50,000. Like, absolutely no, you didn't. You just took a bath of $100,000 loss. You know what I mean? There's running costs. There's development charges. There is the actual cash back you get from the refinance. So there's a lot of hidden cost. I'd say spend a lot more time in your operating costs and thinking about those type of unknowns.
And then best way to actually, if they were interested, the market's a good opportunity right now. Stuff's down 20% from its peak. What would be the best way to actually like finance this? Is it getting a loan? Is it taking on investors? Is it savings if you have it? Obviously, that's probably the best. But what would be your advice for someone that wants to get started?
Well, if you're just starting off and you have no experience, the reality is, I don't want to say nobody is going to give you money, but it's like that is not the path of least resistance. It's very hard to raise money if you have no experience. So use your savings and use the cheapest debt available and the highest leverage debt that's available, which is always going to be any A-lender, first-time home buyer financing. Just go to the bank, see what you qualify for, and that's it. And here's the thing is the more money you put on the line, the more mortgage you tie to your personal name, then the more people are going to be willing to top up on top of that. But at the core, if you're first starting off, go in there, go to an A-lender, see what you qualify for, and then that'll be the best bang for your buck.
Really actionable stuff right there. Let's dive into our Fan Blitz questions. And these are questions submitted from our community listeners. If you want to join in on world-class entrepreneurs, email us at podcast@upflip.com and we'll get all your questions answered. But Seif, ready for our last 5 questions here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Number 1, worst renovation trend that needs to die.
Going with kitchens and bathrooms that are too trendy and picking every single room that looks like it's one of one, where the house does not look like it ties together. So you renovate one bathroom, you renovate the next one completely different. It just looks tasteless.
I like that. That's good. One tool you can't live without on a job site.
Well, on site definitely is going to be your table saw, right? On site, what tool you can't live without? It's our CRM Builder Trend.
Nice. I like it. Best purchase you've made under $100.
You know what? My lunch.
I like it. You gotta fuel up somehow. First thing you'd fix walking into any house.
The cleanliness and organization, right? It just causes way more headache later.
What's the hardest trade to find good people in right now? Good employees.
I would say if we're talking about the office, I would say good management because accountability is very rare right now. And then in the field, for some reason, tapers. I think it needs a lot of attention to detail.
I want to thank you so much for your time today and making this a really actual podcast. This is a newer business model that we've had on. So I want to thank you for that. But last question, if someone's like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about you, where can they connect with you and do so at?
The best place is Instagram. You can connect with the company. It's Newfor Inc., NEWFORE INC. And if you want to message me personally, it's my personal Instagram. My handle is Seif El-Sahly, SEIF. Last name is ELSAHLY.
Everyone, that was an amazing episode with Seif. 3 quick takeaways for you. Number 1, fail fast. As an entrepreneur, you're going to fail and fail a lot. It's best to fail fast than wait to make a decision. Number 2, don't have analysis paralysis. Once you are able to identify all the information, go. Take action right away. Number 3, that leads me to my third point. Take action. Do not wait. That's one of my biggest takeaways always when it comes to entrepreneurship is you need to be able to take action. Great episode here with Seif. If you guys are enjoying this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you do listen. Helps to get more amazing entrepreneurs like him onto the show. And we will see you next Monday. Seif, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ryan.